Say it again.
Something like, "Hi, this is Frank Zappa. I guess you don't have anything better to do tonight, huh?"
Okay, ready? Hi, this is Frank Zappa. I guess you don't have anything better to do tonight, huh?
The American musician Frank Zappa is one of the most exotic, original, and complex figures to have emerged from rock culture.
Some people like to be a carpenter. Unfortunately, I like to play music.
Band leader.
We all had our eyes on Frank all the time. And you had to, because you never knew what was going to happen.
Guitar hero.
Do you consider yourself a great guitarist?
Well, I'm specialized.
Composer.
Basically, sounds are for listening to, and composition is the act of organizing sounds. But the goal here is entertainment.
Satirist.
Let's not be too rough on our own ignorance. I mean, after all, it's the thing that makes America great.
Political commentator.
There is an illusion in the United States that we have free press, and it is purely an illusion.
How do you want to be introduced? Well, national treasure.
Few musicians have challenged society like Frank Zappa. With razor-sharp intellect and fearless satire, he exposed hypocrisy and challenged the norm like nobody else, creating music as unorthodox as his ideas. But Zappa wasn't just a provocateur, he was a visionary composer whose warnings about censorship and misinformation feel more relevant today than ever. To understand his genius, we have to go back to a childhood where his intelligence and musicality took shape early, setting the stage for everything that followed.
He was awfully intelligent, and he was very articulate. But he started that when he was 15 years old. He was that smart, that early in his life.
And I got into music not as rock and roll. I first started off writing chamber music and orchestra music when I was 14. I didn't write a rock and roll song until I was 21.
And then I asked him where he studied, and I expected him to say that he went to the Juilliard or something. Well, he didn't study any place. He studied by just reading scores. And so he learned much more than he could ever learn in any university or in any school of music.
Who were some of your major musical influences?
Well, I think my favorite guitar player working in rock and roll today would be Alan Holdsworth. In classical music, my favorite composers are Stravinsky, Webern, Bartok, guys like that. There's a list of 160 names on the inside of the Freak Out album. The names are influences, both positive and negative. I'm easily influenced by things I hate.
Are you as easily influenced by things you like?
Yeah. But there's more stuff that I hate than stuff that I like. So if you write music, you want to have some of it heard, and so I went into rock and roll.
And rock and roll it was. Frank Zappa went all in. By 1966, the Mothers of Invention was born, and the band set out on an uncharted musical course with Frank Zappa in the lead.
Zappa and the Mothers of Invention. His underground hits carried such classic titles as Susie Cream Cheese, Brown Shoes Don't Make It, and Call Any Vegetable, plus several with lyrics that we'd have trouble quoting.
When you started the Mothers of Invention, what did your parents think?
Well, let's just say they weren't all that thrilled about it.
How did the band come together?
We asked Ray, do you know a guitar player? He said, yeah, I know a guy. His name is Frank Zappa. And that's when Frank got us all together and said, look, if you will play my music, I will make you rich and famous. Well, he took care of half that promise. He made me famous, but he damn sure didn't make me rich.
By accident.
If anybody ever asks me who my favorite rock and roll band is, I'm going to say the Mothers of Invention.
We were the best band in the world in the 60s. None of the other bands were doing the things we were doing, I guarantee you that.
Frank had written a lot of stuff that very few people were able to play at that time. There were very few conservatory-trained musicians, and I could play them, see. And I not only could play them, I loved it.
I was playing in the best band in the world. Musically the best band in the world. Certainly the most rehearsed band in the world.
Frank had the great ability to draw the best parts of people out musically.
And we never played the same show twice, ever. Never the same show twice.
But at some point, Frank Zappa wanted a change. It seemed that he wasn't fully satisfied with where the Mothers were going at the time.
But having established the Mothers as one of the most formidable and original bands of the 60s, now with a huge following in Europe as well as the United States, Zappa played a characteristic hand. After 5 years and 7 albums, he suddenly disbanded the group.
All of a sudden he said, you know, he said, I'm thinking about breaking up the band. And I said, really? And he said, yeah. He said, I just want to go another direction.
It was pretty heavy and pretty cold, man. Well, it made me feel like shit because I didn't know why it was being broken up.
I had many arguments with Ray Collins, who was the lead singer of the group, about the lyrics to the songs. He didn't want to say those things.
Well, up until that time, the main drawback that I could see with most of the Mothers albums prior to the Hot Rats album was the fact that the rhythm section didn't really get off the ground. But I think the band suffered from lack of having a good beat.
I think, to be honest, Frank just wanted a band with players that he thought were at a higher caliber.
In the 1970s, after disbanding the first iteration of the Mothers of Invention, Frank Zappa entered one of the most prolific periods of his career, releasing some of his most iconic albums, including Apostrophe, One Size Fits All, and Shake Ya Booty. He assembled a new lineup of the Mothers, featuring talented musicians like drummer Ainsley Dunbar and keyboardist George Duke. However, the group would dissolve once again, and throughout the decade, Zappa continued to tour with various ever-changing ensembles, collaborating with musicians such as Ruth Underwood and Napoleon Murphy Brock.
Don't you get a feeling that now with your records moving up in the charts, you're moving into the establishment very much?
Oh, I don't know.
I've been
Do I
hearing
look
that.
like I'm moving into the establishment very much?
My next guest is an innovative and unique musician who has created his own style of music. He is a musical and sociological phenomenon and a legend and a little strange.
He put out some albums with bizarre titles like Hot Rats, We're Only in It for the Money, Weasels Ripped My Flesh, and Lumpy Gravy, all love songs.
Please welcome Frank Zappa.
Please welcome Frank Zappa and his Pinko Socks.
The man, the myth, and the moustache that is Frank Zappa.
I'm committed to turning out as much of it as possible for the people who like it. It's there if you like it. If you don't like it, there's all those other names on the list.
I have a personal relationship with my fans where I don't mess around.
I don't know what I'm going to play. I don't know what I'm going to do. I know roughly how long I have to do it, and it's a game where you have a piece of time and you get to decorate it. A lot of times it's not even rock and roll at all. It just happens to be consumed by a rock and roll audience.
He was totally underrated as a guitarist. Totally.
But when I heard the music, I mean, can you say orgasm on the microphone? It was like an orgasm, the best I ever had in my life.
I think the definition of a genius is a person that's able to call into play this inspiration very simply and organically at any time they want. And I've seen Frank do this constantly. Frank just played the guitar like I've never seen anybody in my life.
The greatest thing that happened in my life was that Frank broke down these ridiculous barriers that I had about music.
Bottom line with Frank was that he wanted to and needed to get the best that he could from everyone. That was of paramount importance to him, and I think that's why he got such really extraordinary results.
For me, it was always more interesting to encounter a musician who had a unique ability, find a way to showcase that, and build that unusual skill into the composition.
How brutal he was on me. I couldn't even believe it. He made it so difficult.
Because with Frank, the rehearsals were, you have to be on. There's no, it's a big boys game, When Frank walks in, you just have to be on.
But Zappa's tough side wasn't reserved for musicians alone. Throughout his career, he spoke out against the deeper flaws in American society, taking particular aim at the music and television industries. He saw them as corrupt, shallow, and driven by commercial interests rather than creativity, symptoms of a larger cultural decline that he refused to ignore.
You got a Grammy
for Jazz from Hell. Does that mean anything extra to you?
Well, I think that it's living proof that the whole process is a fraud. I got it for a song called Jazz from Hell, which I'm convinced nobody has ever heard. Regular rock is everything that sounds like itself. All songs which sound the same. Everything on MTV, everything on the radio. Because a guy's got a nice leather suit doesn't mean he can really rock.
Do you think that music is more formula than it was, say, in the 60s?
Absolutely. Whereas today, it is my observation that the people in the music business devote their time to making product rather than music.
And he didn't hold back towards the so-called corporate suite either.
Yeah, I thought that one of the important topics that we could discuss in a show such as you've been conducting tonight, and if this really fits in, is brown lipstick in the corporate suite.
Your music is selling and making a lot of money. You dig the bread?
I think that it's very pleasant, but I'd like to see some of it.
You're not getting any of it?
Well, it seems to take a long time getting there, you know. Record companies have a peculiar way of making sure that your expenses always exceed your profits.
Well, I think that nobody really looks good with brown lipstick on. So why do these guys in the corporate suite keep wearing it? And how does it get there?
Have you run into this a lot, Frank?
Yeah.
And
I was at CBS yesterday.
That's right. It's push the button, pull the chain, out comes the little brown choo-choo train.
I cut my teeth on quality rock and roll too. That makes me a foghead.
I think that the real American dream is to always be young, always be rich, and always be cute.
It hasn't been okay to be smart in the United States for centuries.
The thing that sets the Americans apart from the rest of the cultures in the world is we're so fucking stupid. This country's been around for a couple hundred years and we think we're hot shit.
But more than anything else, Zappa was driven by a relentless commitment to one fundamental principle.
I'm a parent. I've got 4 children. 2 of them are here. I want them to grow up in a country where they can think what they want to think, be what they want to be, and not what somebody's wife or somebody in government makes them be.
Free speech. Throughout his career, many people attacked his music, and he frequently faced attempts by people to censor his songs.
Some people are shocked by certain things that I say, but it's only because they never stop to think about it.
Somebody has to talk about sexuality. The rest of the people just talk around it. The history of the Mothers of Invention has been fraught with censorship problems, and these result when somebody has been employed by somebody else to determine what's best for the public at large.
During the press conference, they were playing some of our albums, and I noticed that the Uncle Meat album had been censored. And they're not supposed to do that.
There was a coalition or a committee of, I guess, Washington wives who wanted to, as I understand it, were trying to get lyrics censored or make record artists more aware of what they were saying.
Some of their unscientific conclusions were that rock music will make you commit suicide, that rock music leads people to become murderers. Some people have said that rock music is the major cause of incest in the home. Their proposals are really dumb. They're also very dangerous in terms of what they can lead to for violating your right to free speech.
Frank Zappa is one of the few rock artists to come out openly against the labeling effort.
Zappa, alongside rock legends Dee Snider and John Denver, dubbed the Unholy Trinity, testified before the Senate during hearings on so-called porn rock. United in their defense of artistic freedom, they argued against censorship and warned that the proposed measures posed a serious threat to free speech.
These are my personal observations and opinions. I speak on behalf of no group or professional organization. The PMRC proposal is an ill-conceived piece of nonsense which fails to deliver any real benefits to children. Bad facts make bad law, and people who write bad laws are, in my opinion, more dangerous than songwriters who celebrate sexuality, freedom of speech, freedom of religious thought, and the right to due process for composers, performers, and retailers.
If it looks like censorship and it smells like censorship, it is censorship.
After decades of pushing musical boundaries, challenging societal norms, and fiercely defending artistic freedom, Zappa began shifting his focus toward a long-standing passion, classical music, while he had always incorporated orchestral and conducting elements into his work.
Now here is just the opposite of that. The highest possible note on your instrument. Let's go.
In his later years, he dedicated himself more fully to the art of classical music.
Your latest album, the London Symphony Orchestra, performing heretofore unrecorded Frank Zappa works.
And one thing that I'm very clear about is I married a composer. I don't know about whatever he is to anybody else, but to me, it was a composer.
How do you get the London Symphony Orchestra to do your stuff?
You pay them.
Yeah.
Because I feel like his music is very much misunderstood, because he was a composer, a classical composer who happened to use a rock band as his orchestra for the most part.
But isn't this a really prestigious organization?
Of course. So you pay them a lot of money.
Yeah.
In the world of classical music, Zappa was met with critical acclaim. In 1992, the German chamber ensemble Modern invited him to have his compositions performed at the Frankfurt Festival and asked if he would conduct. By then, however, his illness had progressed significantly, limiting his strength. He was only able to conduct the opening piece, Overture, and the finale, G-Spot Tornado. The performance was a triumph. Zappa received a 20-minute standing ovation. It would be his final professional public appearance. Zappa was a visionary in music and a fearless advocate for free speech, an influence that feels more vital than ever in today's culture of censorship and cancellation. In an era dominated by MTV and commercial trends, he proved that true artistry comes from defying expectations, creating without compromise and pushing boundaries to perfection. There will never be another like him.
Is this as kind of an attempt to take the myth out of yourself?
Taking the myth out of myself. No, I've tried to take the myth out of myself regularly over the last 25 years.
To a musician today that is starting out, what advice would you give them?
Well, here's the secret. There are two things that you have to do. Or one of them is to not stop, and the other one is to keep going. But when you get there, you'll find out that it's still tough.
Is there anything you ever did that you were sorry for in music?
No.
Oh, I love what I'm doing. The American government invited you to be president.
They should be so lucky.